Hello, Lafayette, and welcome to the next episode of the LPIE podcast, where we talk about Lafayette schools, the LPIE Education Foundation, and what your donation supports for our teachers and children. My name is Adam Welcome, and I am the host of this podcast for LPIE, and also a father of two children currently at Spring Hill Elementary. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are in for a treat today because this episode is an actual walk down memory lane with two Hall of Famers as our guide. We have Mary McCosker and Kelly Daggs, who have done so much for LPIE, from art to historical tours and so much more. Mary and Kelly, welcome to the podcast. Mary, introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Mary McCosker, and I've lived in Lafayette almost my entire life. And I love Lafayette history. I love teaching children about the town that they're living in and how it began. And I've been a docent for, I think, 31 years.
Well, I think that was a pretty humble introduction by Mary, so we're going to have to dig out a few more details about her as we go. Kelly, introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are.
Hello, Adam. Kelly Daggs. I am a resident of Lafayette, and I definitely have taken on the hashtag Love Lafayette over the last 20 years, moving here and raising our children here, Lafayette Elementary School and Stanley, and now Acalanes. The learning about LPIE and being part of this community has really helped me understand really what the word community means.
Yeah, the green bumper sticker, I think if you live in Lafayette, even if you don't live in Lafayette, a lot of people come to the Lafayette Reservoir and they see the Love Lafayette stickers. And I definitely think I know there is something to that. Mary, bring us back 40 years. What was going on in the community? What jump-started LPIE, which was then started as LASF? You've been a board member. You are I'm calling you a Hall of Famer. Mary, you are in the Hall of Fame. Tell us what was happening in Lafayette 40 years ago.
Well, for me, 40 years ago, I had young children, and I'm not sure they weren't necessarily in school yet. So I'm not positive that I was really aware of the very beginnings of LASF. But I do know several years later, when I was on the school board, I remember that there were budget cuts that were being made, and the part of the budget that was being cut were the arts and the sciences. And that was a hard thing because teachers had a lot on their plates, and there weren't supplemental programs. There weren't people coming in and instructing children. And so when the money got tight, some of the programs that were sort of not the traditional 3 Rs, those programs were cut. And so there were several women, Sue Stauffer, Helen Troxel, who didn't want this to happen. They felt that music and the arts were very important. And so they began discussions and worked with other people to start the Lafayette Arts and Science Foundation.
You know, I love what you said, because in 40 years, nothing has changed. My former life, I was a teacher and a principal, and the arts and the music, unfortunately, are usually the first ones to get cut. And even now, the word STEM is something that we talk about in education. And I think the A gets dropped off too quick. It is STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And Kelly, I know that you are very involved with LPIE art and so many different functionalities within that. What is the art piece mean to you and your children, and just maybe as an educator and as a parent as a whole?
I see the art as the arts, so it's certainly the opportunity for children to explore different mediums of painting and different techniques that they are introduced to by teachers from kindergarten all the way through into amazing projects that they do in middle school. but also music. And that's been a profound impact on my children, especially my eldest, as he was introduced to music in elementary school and truly found his passion at Stanley with Bob Athade as the instrumental music director, and having the opportunity to explore different instruments and really develop a strong love for music, and that has carried him into high school and maybe even beyond.
You know, Mary, I'm thinking about what you said about just in 40 years and the change, and your kids, you were in the community before your kids were in school. And I think about the Lafayette Library downtown, and I love on the bottom floor as you drive into the parking garage, there's those two huge pictures. And there's the one picture from, I don't even, maybe the 50s. It was before Highway 24 was even built. And you can see where Akalani's high school was or was supposed to be, and there's nothing around. And then if you look to the right, it's all the development. And like most towns, but I would say Lafayette in a really big way, there's been a lot of change, and there's been so much growth. And maybe what are the top 3 things that you are most proud of, Mary, as a parent, as a former board member, as the work that you still do in the Historical Society, about Lafayette and the schools and just everything that the community has to offer?
Well, I think if you're talking about education, I think the most important thing is that we have been able to attract and retain so many wonderful educators. You know, I've had, my children have had a lot of different teachers over the years when they were in school, and I've worked with a lot of teachers, and they work so hard. I mean, I know right now they're working extremely hard, and it's very difficult. But I would say that our educational opportunities in Lafayette, our staff and our school districts, both of them, they're just outstanding, and we were very fortunate for that. We've also had people involved in the city government who don't get paid, but spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make our community a safer, more successful place for businesses. And I know that they're also having a difficult time right now. I don't know. It's hard. No, I think it's obviously it's a good place to live because the population has increased and people pay huge amounts of money to live here, to buy homes. You know, it's not without its foibles, but you know, it's a nice place to live, and there's lots of good pluses to living here.
Yeah, I think with that, Mary, what does it mean to you that LASF and now LPIE has been around for 40 years? I mean, the organization is celebrating 40 years this year, which is it's profound in many ways. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that the community, the parent community and the larger community value what LPIE, LASF has and is doing and providing education for our students, for the students of our community. I think, you know, it was a great idea, but it could have, if it wasn't supported by the businesses in town, by the parents, by other people, obviously it wouldn't still be in existence. So it shows that it's very valued.
So we also have the current LPIE president with us today, Jennifer Martell. And Jennifer, as the current president, year 40, what does that history mean to you? And gosh, what do the next 40 years look like? I know that's a long way to look out, but what does it mean to you? And what are some goals, some current goals of LPIE that they have for the schools and the teachers?
So thanks, Adam. I think the thing that I have learned the most this year is that in 40 years, the need has not changed. Kelly has been going back and doing all this digging through old newspaper articles and through the Historical Society with Mary, trying to find old information on Lafayette. And, you know, some of the early things were we need parents that just want to help. And we still need parents that just want to help, right? And our school district funding is still not good. It hasn't changed in 40 years. And these programs are important to our kids, and we have to find a way to fund them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it is it is the parents, it is the people that volunteer. And I think, Kelly, that leads us into the next question. Why do you dedicate so much time to LPIE? I mean, you've come through the ranks. You're probably in your last few years, Lafayette L, Stanley, and now with kids at Acalanes. Why are you still here? Why do you dedicate, and why have you dedicated so much time?
As Jen mentioned, digging into the last 40 years to celebrate the 40 years of LASF and LPIE has been a real pleasure. And looking in the Historical Society archives at newspaper articles celebrating science fairs and music festivals, and reading about all of the impact that it's had to our students, to our teachers, to our administrators, and to our broader community for the last 40 years is a great reminder of why working with the organization for the last decade has brought so much back to me. It's been wonderful to be able to provide to our community and to provide for our children. But certainly I benefit tremendously from those opportunities. The last several weeks, we've been doing a campaign to celebrate each decade. So going back to 1980 and looking at that call for help, that call to parents that just want to help. And I did find that to be a really profound statement that has not changed one iota in the last 40 years. There have been some fluctuations in terms of how state funding has been absent, but the need has continued to grow, and we've adjusted as an organization for what those needs are, and moving into greater needs with technology, for example. In more recent years, as they transition from LASF to LPIE to be truly a partner in education, I think the leaders at that time recognized that the arts and sciences were a critical path, excuse me, but there was even more need that could be met with being a more significant partner in education. And so I hope that the next 40 years, we continue to see that partnership grow and adapt to what the needs are of our students and our schools.
Yeah, when I think about the looking forward piece and the next 40 years, I think of an analogy of planting a tree. And let's say our 4 families are living on the same street. And gosh, what would be awesome is a tree-lined street. And our street right now isn't lined with trees. So Mary, Kelly, Jen, my family, we're all going to plant beautiful trees, 2 feet from the curb. And in 40 years, those people will enjoy those trees when they are healthy and mature. And I think that's just an important way to look at it, from passing the parcel tax last year to the 40-year giving campaign. And I think a lot of people, we are in the Bay Area where there's a lot of large companies in Silicon Valley, and people move in from all over the country and the world, for that matter, into La Miranda proper. And, someone that's new to California, Mary, and they don't know what an education foundation is and why they are appropriate, why they are needed. Mary, if you had them in front of you, what would you tell them?
Well, if they have children, the Educational Foundation, LPIE, it adds to the already terrific educational foundation that their children are going to have. But it's just like the frosting on the cake, I think. It expands, it gives more depth and breadth to their education. So it's not just the basic subjects, it's a lot of sort of extras that really help, I think, kids throughout their lives. I mean, it exposes them to, I'm always in awe of the art instructors because I'm not artistic at all. But just some of the things that they show students as a particular kind of painter, a person, what their style is, what their technique is. And then they create these incredible, reproductions or their own creations using that particular style. And I wish I had that when I was in school here. It just gives you so much additional oomph to who you are and what you know.
Yeah, I like that word oomph. And I think you could also go back. So I think about Elam and Margaret Brown that helped to found this city, and they have such a profound history. And if they were here, we could go back and say, well, why are you doing this, and why is that foundation? And you could tell them, and this is why. And a side note, if you want a really cool historical field trip, they are both buried in Martinez at the top of Snake Road. It's actually a really cool old cemetery. There's St. Catherine Cemetery on the left, which is open to the public and you can drive through, and the cemetery on the right, you need to go to the Martinez Police Department and ask them for the key, and you can unlock. And John Muir has tons of family that are buried there. There's the Fish family, which was a very prominent family in the Martinez Pacheco area. Mary, I'm probably preaching to the choir with that little brief history lesson there, but we love adding a little pizzazz and oomph, to take your term, into the podcast for some different things that you can do. Kelly, talking about the 40-year campaign and the community campaign, I've been seeing a lot of different things on the LPIE Twitter and the LPIE Facebook and Instagram, and just all the different graphics and ideas that have been coming out. What does that campaign mean to you?
It's really a celebration of our community. And I think that in the midst of a pandemic that has really shaken so many aspects of all of us, I mean, speaking of the trees, we've all had aspects of our lives shaken. And this celebration of LPIE falls in the category of the silver lining. And it falls into a category of something that's really right about our community and continues to support our children, our schools in the best way possible with distance learning. They've really stepped up to try to figure out ways to adapt, to pivot to this new environment, from technology to masks that children will use to play instruments that will allow them to still be able to perform in that manner. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, and I think that art piece is important. I know we've had some LPIE art teachers on the podcast. You can go back and listen to episode 2 to hear all those amazing conversations. But I know my own children, my daughter who's in 4th grade at Spring Hill, LPIE art started, I believe, last month. It wasn't like part of the kickoff. And she heard from her teacher, Mrs. Churchill. Shout out to Mrs. Churchill, 4th grade teacher at Spring Hill, that LPIE art was going to be happening on the Wednesday. And my daughter shrieked. And we were actually in Tahoe last week doing school virtually from Tahoe. Thankfully, it was a nice week away. I think at some points of time, half of Lafayette might be in Tahoe doing virtual school. And the lesson, I think, was 45 minutes. My daughter worked on it for at least 4 hours. Because she needed that outlet, and the arts are so important. And especially right now, there's a lot of stress in our world, and our kids feel that, and having those outlets are so important. And it's an awesome thing. So again, LPIE, thank you LASF for starting 40 years ago. And I would say, in closing, I'm going to ask you both the same question. Mary, you are downtown somewhere. Maybe you are in front of the old theater where I used to go see movies as a kid, and you are talking to some people and you have their attention for as long as you want. Well, what would you tell them about Lafayette? What would you tell them about the Historical Society? What would you tell them about LPIE and the school district? Go.
Well, I would tell them to first join the Historical Society because we need members. It's something that people enjoy learning about, but then they sort of, after their kids have had it, they kind of drop it. And we are an older organization. We pay rent to the city. So, it's $5,000+ a year. And lately we haven't had any programs or anything. We're really closed. So I would say, if you value learning about the history of the community in which you now live, and you think it's important, then it would be nice to have it supported. So you don't have to be just a 3rd grader to love Lafayette history. I would say that LPIE has been wonderful in bringing, they're the vehicle that allows us to bring it to the children and the parents of the third graders. But, you know, it would be nice to support LPIE, but also the Historical Society could use a little help too.
Yeah, well, you heard it. Mayor McCosker, I'm going to tell you folks, don't mess with Mary. So you got to go sign up. You got to help out. But to echo what you said, my daughter last year in third grade, local history, it's part of the standards in California. That was her impetus to get so excited about Pioneer Day. And my mother made her a pioneer dress. And I think we're on season 6 of Little House on the Prairie because she is so interested. So that gateway does happen in the elementary schools. So Mary, thank you. Kelly, same question. You got some people. What are you telling them about LPIE, Lafayette in general, and why it's so amazing here?
Well, I'm going to tell them to join the Historical Society because Mary McCosker said so. I'm going to say that your child's in for a treat when they are learning about Lafayette history and understanding why it's so special. And I'm going to say, as someone who did not grow up here, although my husband did, so I did not have an education foundation, nor a need for one, that we have a critical need for our education foundation. And without it, our students' education would really be missing some key elements. So I developed a passion and an interest for volunteering at a young age and continued that when I was living in San Francisco. So when moving to Lafayette, LPIE was certainly one that I was anxious to transition my time and energy towards. My passion isn't for raising money, but I have recognized that in order to support initiatives for our community, for our children, for education, that raising money is a component that is necessary. Volunteering with LPIE has given me opportunities to broaden my skills and learn new things, whether it's on field trips with Mary McCosker or working in the classroom and doing the Japanese art form.
I also think too that it brings into play the whole idea of volunteerism, and I think people start maybe as a parent volunteer in the classroom. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing for our children, grandchildren, to see that when you live in a community, you need to give back to it. And I think people do that through LPIE. People do that by working in the classroom, but it's that whole idea of there's no free lunch. Everybody's responsible, and if as a citizen, that's your responsibility, is to somehow help out.
Well, Kelly, Mary, thank you so much for your time. When COVID is hopefully under control and people can get together, I want to spend some more time with you and Mary. I am putting my reservation in right now for a walking tour of Lafayette because I know a lot of the history, but I know that you know all the nooks and crannies and special places to go around Lafayette. So Mary, put Adam, Welcome, and family on your calendar, and I will sign up 10 people for the Historical Society. That'll be my ticket, because you heard Mayor McCosker. She said that we need support. But in ending this podcast, Jennifer Martell, it's the 40th anniversary. The community campaign is happening. Please give us some final words on that.
I think it's a privilege that we get to honor the fact that LPIE has been around for 40 years. And we are also grateful for everyone who has started it and has continued on the traditions and carried on our mission along the way. Some years have been easier than others, but at the end of the day, what's so important is that our kids are getting to do the things in school and learn things at school that they are passionate about, and that sparks joy for them outside of learning their core subjects. So I hope everyone's going to look for our hashtag 40for40 on social media. And
ooh, that's a good one.
I was not me, but yes, we have a great team. So yeah, look for hashtag 40for40 on social media, and you can learn a lot more about the history of LASF and LPIE there.
Jennifer Martell, Kelly Daggs, Mayor McCosker, what an important and fun episode to record and listen. Everyone listening, thank you. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for giving us some time to learn about LPIE, LASF, and the 40 40-year history of LPIE, which is absolutely profound, and we hope you all have an absolutely amazing day.
Now for a special message from LPIE Executive Director Beth Goldberg.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the LPIE podcast series. We hope you are enjoying the conversations and learning about the impact of your donations to LPIE. If you want to hear more, please subscribe. We will continue to roll out conversations with experts in our community so you can hear firsthand how our students are benefiting from your support. Without an education foundation in Lafayette, we would lose incredible programming that expands opportunities for our students. So please visit lpi.org and donate an amount that is meaningful to you. If you have questions or hot topics you'd like us to talk about, contact LPIE at office@lpi.org. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next podcast.